What happens when one of America's most beloved actresses goes head-to-head with a late-night host who thinks he can bully anyone into submission? Tonight, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had Jennifer Aniston storming off the Jimmy Kimmel live set, leaving the audience in stunned silence and Jimmy Kimmel scrambling to save face. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how power corrupts and how sometimes even the nicest people have their breaking point. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because this story gets more intense with every minute. Jennifer Aniston walked onto the Jimmy Kimmel live stage that Tuesday evening with her usual warm smile, waving to the enthusiastic audience who erupted in cheers. She looked radiant in a sleek black dress, her blonde hair perfectly styled, embodying the effortless charm that had made her a household name for decades. The band played her off as she settled into the guest chair, crossing her legs gracefully and adjusting her dress with practiced ease. Jimmy Kimmel, however, had a different energy tonight. His usual goofy demeanor seemed forced, his smile not quite reaching his eyes as he shuffled through his note cards with unusual intensity. The audience couldn't sense it yet, but there was something predatory in the way he looked at Jennifer, like a shark circling its prey. "Jennifer Aniston, everybody," Jimmy announced, his voice carrying that familiar nasal quality, but with an edge that regular viewers might have missed. "Thank you so much for being here, Jen. Can I call you Jen?" "Of course," Jennifer replied, her voice warm and genuinely friendly. "It's great to be here, Jimmy. Thanks for having me." "So," Jimmy began, leaning back in his chair with a smirk that seemed calculated, "I have to ask about something that's been all over social media lately. There are these rumors about you and your personal life, and I figure, hey, if we don't ask the tough questions, who will, right?" Jennifer's smile faltered slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Well, that depends on what you're referring to, Jimmy. You know how these rumors can be." Jimmy's eyes lit up with what could only be described as malicious glee. "Oh, come on, Jennifer. Don't play coy with me. I'm talking about the allegations that you've been difficult to work with on set. Multiple sources saying you're not the sweet Rachel Green everyone thinks you are." The audience grew quiet, sensing the shift in tone. Jennifer's posture straightened, her media training kicking in as she tried to navigate what was clearly becoming hostile territory. "Jimmy, I think there might be some misunderstanding here," Jennifer said, her voice still controlled but with a slight tremor that betrayed her growing discomfort. "I've been fortunate to work with incredible people throughout my career, and I always try to bring professionalism and kindness to every project." But Jimmy wasn't letting up. In fact, he seemed energized by her discomfort, leaning forward like a predator sensing weakness. "But that's not what I'm hearing, Jen. I'm hearing stories about tantrums, about you making impossible demands, about treating crew members like they're beneath you. Care to comment on that?" "I'm sorry, what?" Jennifer's voice sharpened, the first crack in her composed facade. "Jimmy, I have no idea what you're talking about. These sound like completely fabricated stories." Jimmy waved his hand dismissively, his smugness becoming more apparent by the second. "Look, Jennifer, I get it. Hollywood can change people. Success can go to your head. It happens to the best of us. But don't you think your fans deserve the truth?" The audience was now completely silent, the uncomfortable tension palpable throughout the studio. Jennifer's face was flushing, not with embarrassment but with mounting anger. "The truth?" Jennifer repeated, her voice rising slightly. "The truth is that you invited me here under false pretenses, Jimmy. I came here to talk about my new project, to have a friendly conversation with someone I thought was a colleague in this industry. Instead, you're ambushing me with what sounds like tabloid gossip and treating me like I'm on trial." Jimmy chuckled, but it was cold and calculated. "Oh, come on, Jennifer. Don't be so dramatic. This is just good television. The audience loves it when we dig a little deeper, right, folks?" He gestured to the audience, expecting support, but instead was met with scattered, uncertain applause. Most people sat in uncomfortable silence, clearly sensing that something had gone very wrong. Good television? Jennifer's voice was now clearly strained with controlled fury. Jimmy, good television doesn't involve blindsiding your guests with unsubstantiated attacks on their character. What you're doing right now is not journalism. It's not entertainment. It's just cruel. Jimmy's facade was starting to slip, his fake concern replaced by something nastier. Look, sweetheart, I'm just asking the questions that everyone wants answers to. If you can't handle a little heat, maybe you shouldn't be in the kitchen. The condescending sweetheart hit Jennifer like a slap. Her eyes flashed with something dangerous, the kind of anger that comes from years of dealing with men who think they can diminish women with patronizing language. Sweetheart? Jennifer's voice was now ice cold. Did you just call me sweetheart? Jimmy, I've been in this industry for over 30 years. I've dealt with more challenging situations than you can imagine, and I've always handled myself with grace and professionalism. But what you're doing right now crosses every line of basic human decency. The studio had fallen completely silent now. Even the crew members behind the cameras seemed frozen, unsure of what to do as the situation spiraled out of control. Jimmy, perhaps realizing he had pushed too far but too proud to back down, doubled down on his aggression. Jennifer, you're being way too sensitive about this. I mean, come on, you're a public figure. This comes with the territory. If you can't handle a few tough questions, maybe you should stick to making rom-coms and leave the real conversations to people who can handle them. That last comment was the breaking point. Jennifer's eyes narrowed, and for the first time in the interview, she leaned forward in her chair, her voice dropping to a deadly quiet tone that somehow carried more weight than any shout could have. Excuse. Me? Jennifer said, each word carefully enunciated. Did you just suggest that I should stick to rom-coms because I can't handle real conversations? Jimmy, let me tell you something about real conversations. Real conversations involve respect, preparation, and genuine curiosity about your guest. What you're doing here is none of those things. Jimmy tried to interrupt with a laugh, but Jennifer held up her hand, her years of commanding film sets giving her a presence that demanded attention. No, I'm talking now, Jennifer continued, her voice gaining strength. You want to talk about handling things? Let's talk about how you've handled this interview. You brought me here under false pretenses. You've made accusations without providing any sources or evidence. You've spoken to me in a condescending manner that you would never use with a male guest, and now you're questioning my ability to engage in meaningful dialogue while simultaneously proving that you're incapable of it yourself. The audience was completely captivated now, some people actually leaning forward in their seats. This wasn't the Jennifer Aniston they were used to seeing, the perpetually pleasant actress from their favorite sitcoms and movies. This was someone with steel in her backbone, someone who had clearly reached her limit. Jimmy's face was reddening, his casual arrogance being replaced by something uglier. Look, Jennifer, I think you're overreacting here. This is how interviews work. I ask questions, you answer them. It's not personal. Not personal? Jennifer's laugh was sharp and humorless. Jimmy, you literally just questioned my professionalism, my character, and my intelligence in front of a live audience and millions of viewers at home. How is that not personal? And furthermore, this is not how interviews work. Interviews involve research, respect for your guest, and questions that serve a purpose beyond cheap sensationalism. Jimmy was clearly losing control of the situation, his usual quick wit abandoning him as he faced someone who refused to be bullied. I'm just doing my job, Jennifer. Sometimes that means asking the hard questions that other people won't ask. Your job? Jennifer stood up from her chair now, her full height giving her an even more commanding presence. Jimmy, your job is to entertain people, to make them laugh, to give them a break from their daily struggles. Your job is not to tear down women who have worked their entire lives to build their careers and reputations. Your job is not to perpetuate harmful stereotypes about successful women being difficult or demanding. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Even the band members behind Jimmy looked uncomfortable, some of them actually avoiding eye contact with their host. Jimmy tried to regain control, his voice taking on a pleading quality that revealed his desperation. "Jennifer, please sit down. Let's reset here. Maybe we got off on the wrong foot." "Got off on the wrong foot?" Jennifer's voice was incredulous. "Jimmy, there was no wrong foot. There was your deliberate decision to ambush me with garbage and my reasonable expectation that I would be treated with basic human respect. Those aren't equivalent things." Jimmy's face was now visibly sweating, his carefully styled hair beginning to show signs of stress. "Look, I'm sorry if you feel like I crossed a line, but—" "If I feel like you crossed a line?" Jennifer interrupted, her voice rising for the first time in the interview. "Jimmy, there's no if about it. You didn't just cross a line, you obliterated it. And the fact that you're saying if I feel like you crossed it shows that you still don't understand what you've done wrong." The audience was starting to murmur now, some people actually applauding Jennifer's words. Jimmy noticed this, and his expression darkened further. "You know what, Jennifer?" Jimmy's voice took on a nasty edge. "Maybe this is exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe this right here is the difficult behavior that people have been talking about. You can't handle a simple interview without having a complete meltdown." That was it. The final straw. Jennifer's face went completely calm, which somehow seemed more terrifying than her anger had been. "A meltdown, Jimmy?" Jennifer's voice was now dangerously quiet. "You think this is a meltdown? Let me tell you what a meltdown would look like. A meltdown would be me screaming at you for being an unprofessional hack who ambushes women because you're too cowardly to have real conversations with people who might challenge you intellectually. A meltdown would be me pointing out that your entire career is built on cheap laughs at other people's expense because you lack the talent to create genuine entertainment." Jimmy's mouth fell open slightly. No one had ever spoken to him like this on his own show. Jennifer continued, her voice gaining momentum. "A meltdown would be me mentioning how you consistently interrupt female guests, how you ask them about their personal lives while asking male guests about their work, how you use your platform to perpetuate the exact kind of misogynistic behavior that makes this industry harder for women every single day." "Jennifer, I think you should calm down," Jimmy said weakly, but his words only fueled her fire. "Calm down?" Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jimmy, I am calm. This is me being perfectly calm while explaining to you exactly what kind of person you're revealing yourself to be. If you want to see what not calm looks like, keep talking." Jimmy made one last desperate attempt to regain control. "This is my show, Jennifer. I'm the host here." Jennifer looked at him with something that might have been pity if it weren't so withering. "Yes, Jimmy, this is your show, and this is how you choose to use it. This is your legacy. Ambushing guests, tearing down successful women, and then acting like the victim when someone finally calls you out on your behavior." She reached down and unclipped her microphone, the small action somehow carrying enormous weight. "You know what the really sad part is, Jimmy? You actually had the opportunity to have a real conversation with me tonight. You could have asked about my new project, about my journey in this industry, about the causes I care about anything that might have actually interested your audience or provided some value to the world. Instead, you chose this." Jimmy was now clearly panicking, realizing that he was losing complete control of his own show. "Jennifer, please, can we start over?" Jennifer shook her head slowly. "No, Jimmy, we can't start over, because this isn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This is who you are. This is what you think passes for entertainment. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise just to make you comfortable." The microphone hit the coffee table between them with a soft thud that seemed to echo through the silent studio. Jimmy stared at it like it was a live grenade, his face pale and his hands visibly shaking, as he realized his entire show was falling apart in real time. "Jennifer, please," Jimmy's voice cracked slightly, all pretense of control completely abandoned. "My producers, the network, they're going to kill me if you walk off. Can't we figure this out?" Jennifer looked at him with complete disgust. "Now you're worried about your producers and your network? Jimmy, where was that concern when you decided to turn this interview into a character assassination? Where was your professionalism when you thought it would be entertaining? To humiliate me on national television?" The audience was now completely on Jennifer's side, some people actually standing and applauding her words. Jimmy noticed this, and his desperation became even more palpable. "Look, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry if I went too far. Sometimes we push boundaries for entertainment. It's nothing personal against you specifically." Jennifer's laugh was cold and sharp. "Nothing personal? Jimmy, you made it personal the moment you decided I was fair game for your pathetic attempt at shock humor. And your apology? It's not an apology at all. You're sorry if you went too far. You're sorry if I felt attacked. You're not sorry for what you actually did." Jimmy wiped sweat from his forehead with his palm, his carefully crafted television persona completely shattered. "What do you want me to say, Jennifer? What do you want me to do here?" "I want you to understand something," Jennifer said, her voice carrying the weight of decades in the entertainment industry. "This isn't just about me, Jimmy. This is about every woman who has to sit in chairs like this one and smile politely while men like you think it's acceptable to tear them down for entertainment. This is about every actress who gets asked about her personal life while her male co-stars get asked about their craft. This is about every successful woman who gets labeled as difficult the moment she stands up for herself." Jimmy tried to interrupt, but Jennifer's voice rose to override him. "I'm not finished," she said with such authority that Jimmy actually shrank back in his chair. "You want to know what's really difficult, Jimmy? What's difficult is having to navigate an industry where men in positions of power think they can treat women however they want, and then act surprised when we refuse to take it. What's difficult is having to choose between defending yourself and being labeled a troublemaker, or staying silent and letting people walk all over you." The studio audience was now completely silent, hanging on every word. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to listen. "You asked me about being difficult to work with," Jennifer continued, her voice steady and strong. "Let me tell you what I consider difficult. I consider it difficult when someone uses their platform to spread unsubstantiated rumors about my character. I consider it difficult when someone thinks ambushing a guest is good television. I consider it difficult when someone shows such blatant disrespect for another human being and then acts like the victim when they get called out for it." Jimmy made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Jennifer, I really think we can work this out. Maybe we can edit some of this. Maybe we can—" "Edit this?" Jennifer's voice was incredulous. "Jimmy, you think the solution here is to edit out your behavior instead of taking responsibility for it? That's exactly the problem. You don't want to be accountable for what you've done. You just want to make it disappear so you don't have to face the consequences." She took a step closer to his desk, her presence commanding the entire studio. "Let me be very clear about something, Jimmy. I'm not walking off this stage because I can't handle tough questions. I'm walking off this stage because I refuse to participate in whatever this pathetic display is supposed to be. I refuse to sit here and pretend that what you've done tonight is acceptable just to make your job easier." Jimmy was now visibly panicking, his hands gesturing helplessly. "But the show, we're live. We have commercial breaks coming up. We have—" "Your show is not my responsibility, Jimmy," Jennifer cut him off with ice in her voice. "Your show is your responsibility. And this is what you've chosen to do with it. You've chosen to use your platform to attack people instead of celebrating them. You've chosen to perpetuate harmful stereotypes instead of challenging them. You've chosen to be a bully instead of an entertainer." The audience began to applaud again, this time more sustained and enthusiastic. Jimmy looked out at them with something approaching panic. "This is what real consequences look like, Jimmy," Jennifer said, gesturing toward the applauding audience. "When you treat people badly, eventually it catches up with you. When you think you can say whatever you want, without accountability, eventually someone stands up to you." She turned toward the audience, her demeanor immediately softening as she addressed them directly. "I want to apologize to all of you," Jennifer said, her voice warm and genuine again. "You came here tonight expecting to be entertained, and instead, you had to witness this uncomfortable display. You deserve better than this. You deserve hosts who treat their guests with respect, who ask thoughtful questions, who use their platforms to uplift people instead of tearing them down." The audience erupted in applause and cheers, many people standing now. Jimmy sat in his chair looking absolutely devastated, realizing that his own audience had completely turned against him. Jennifer turned back to Jimmy one final time, her voice carrying a weight that seemed to fill the entire studio. "Jimmy, I hope you learned something from this. I hope you take a long look at what happened here tonight and ask yourself if this is really the kind of person you want to be. Because right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can double down on this behavior and continue to be the kind of host who thinks cruelty passes for entertainment, or you can actually grow from this experience and become someone better." Jimmy opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked completely broken, all his smugness and arrogance replaced by the dawning realization of what he had done. "Goodbye, Jimmy," Jennifer said with finality, then turned to the audience one last time. "Thank you all for your kindness tonight. You've reminded me why I love what I do and why audiences like you make it all worthwhile." She walked off the stage to thunderous applause, leaving Jimmy sitting alone at his desk, staring at the empty chair where she had been sitting. The camera caught his face in close-up, showing a man who had completely lost control of his own show, his own audience, and quite possibly his own career. The studio remained in chaos as Jennifer disappeared behind the curtain, the audience still cheering, and Jimmy Kimmel left to face the wreckage of what was supposed to be just another celebrity interview. So there you have it, the explosive confrontation that had everyone talking. What do you think Jennifer should have done differently, or do you believe she handled the situation perfectly? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that reveal what really happens when the cameras are rolling.